So we have a great 60 minutes coming up. Bart is the founder of the Higher Ed Marketer and Caylor Solutions. As we were building this program, we were like, who are the AI experts in this field? And Bart instantly shot to the top of the list. So please get your hands together for Chasing Mission Fit with Bart Caylor.
Thanks, Valerie.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, everyone. Really excited to be here with you today. And we're going to kind of talk a little bit about Chasing Mission Fit. And it's kind of a passion that I've had that I put into a book. And so I'm just going to kind of cover some of that. Just as Mallory said, I'm Bart Caylor, president and founder of Caylor Solutions and the Higher Ed Marketer. We have a podcast, and my co-host Troy is here today as well, and so be happy to talk with you about that. But one thing I did want to say is while I'm going to be talking about Chasing Mission Fit in this entire presentation, usually I do the mic drop at the end, but since we're going to rush through it and I'm not going to be able to do it, every image in this presentation is AI generated, so just look out for that. So the first thing I want to kind of tell you is that I always start with this quote by Alvin Toffler. He was a futurist in 1970 where he wrote a book called Future Shock. But he says, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. I think it's such a powerful statement, a powerful quote that I always like to start my presentations with, because what I'm going to show you today might require you to unlearn something you might already know and give you a chance to relearn something, much like what we talk about with AI. A lot of people think about, I know how to do that, I don't need that. Well, it's a chance for you to unlearn and relearn something new. So let's just talk a little bit about some of the challenges that are out there in the current enrollment space. And most of what I'm going to talk about right now is from an enrollment standpoint, enrollment marketing, and it's going to really apply to any size school. So I know that I've got some friends here that are from what I would consider micro colleges. So those are colleges that have enrollment of under 300, under 500 students. Then I know we've got some flagship institutions here as well. And so you're going to fall somewhere in between there, but all of us, no matter what size of your institution, we're going to deal with the enrollment cliff. And whether you're dealing with the enrollment cliff for traditional undergrad age students, or whether you're going to be feeling that for the next decade because of graduate students and adult students, that's a very real thing that's going to happen. And so we've got to be ready for that, and we've got to be thinking about that. The perceptions and the attitudes toward higher education has been changing drastically in the last couple years. It's been declining over several years, but that's a real reality that we have today, is that there's a lot of challenges in the perception, of the public perception of what the value of higher education is. And that's going to be included in just the competition that we're going to see as corporations try to get into the higher ed space as well to make their profits. There's also going to be a ton of disruptions, and one of them is what we're talking about this week is AI. Generative artificial intelligence is going to be a huge disruption in the marketplace. Whether you like it or not, it's going to be a part of everything that we do. It's going to be in every last thing that we use, every tool that we have. And so being able to understand that and understand it as a tool and how you can use that will help you kind of get through those disruptions. And then I also think that just all of these changes that are happening, it's change management is going to be one of the biggest skill sets that are going to be needed. And I think that what you're going to find in the middle of all this is that you're going to also find, unfortunately, a lot of senior leadership and board members that are going to be, nearing retirement, that are just going to say, you know what, I can't manage this amount of change. This is getting, the golf course is looking a lot better right now. Playing with the grandkids is looking great. I'm going to check out, and there's going to be a vacancy of leadership. And I think that's going to be one of the other challenges we're going to see in the next several years, is that we're just going to see a lot more vacancies at that top level of leadership that are going to need to be filled. Okay, so I'm going to also show you a bit of a clip of a movie here. And this is a movie from 1995. And what I'm going to show you is it's a movie called Apollo 13, and it kind of illustrates the way I'm trying to address these issues.
Gene, we have a situation brewing with the carbon dioxide.
We had a CO2 filter problem on the lunar module. 5 filters on the LEM, which were meant for 2 guys for a day and a half. So I told the doc.
You're already up to 8 on the gauges. Anything over 15 and you get impaired judgment, blackouts, the beginnings of brain asphyxia.
What about the scrubbers on the command module?
They take square cartridges.
The ones on the LEM are round.
Tell me this isn't a government operation.
It just isn't a contingency we've remotely looked at.
Those CO2 levels are going to be getting toxic.
Well, I suggest you gentlemen invent a way to put a square peg in a round hole. rapidly.
Okay, people, listen up. People upstairs handed us this one, and we gotta come through. We gotta find a way to make this fit into the hole for this, using nothing but that. Let's get it organized.
Okay, let's build a filter.
Better get some coffee going, too, someone.
The deadly CO2 gas is literally poisoning the astronauts with every breath in and out.
Heads up, heads up.
And spokespeople will not comment further.
Go. Heads up, people, look out now.
What's this?
That's what they gotta make.
Well, I hope you got the procedures for me.
Right here.
That's it?
All right, Aquarius and Houston, do you have a flight plan up there?
Affirmative, Andy. Jack's got one right here.
Okay, we have an unusual procedure for you here.
We need you to rip the cover off.
I want you to rip the cover off the flight plan.
With pleasure.
All right, now the other materials you're going to need here are a lithium
Hydroxide canister, two lithium hydroxide canisters, I'm sorry. A roll of gray tape.
Duct tape.
That's duct tape. You need an LCG bag, 2 LCG bags, the red suit hoses, and you've got the flight plan covered.
What about their level of carbon dioxide?
It's climbing.
You're saying that they're almost out of breathable air. No, wait a second. That's not what he said. He said we're working.
You want to cut the duct tape 3 feet long.
Tell me to use his arm.
Just use your arm.
It's a good arm length.
Okay, Houston, I see what you're getting at. Hold on.
Okay, so I love that whole scene because it shows some creativity with limited resources. The full story is the fact that there was a real emergency going on in space, and the only way they could fix it was what they had on that space module, that spacecraft. And so my reinterpretation of that famous scene of we've got to make this work, we've got to make the square piece fit into the hole for this piece. The challenges are real for us as higher education marketers, as higher education leaders and enrollment leaders. They're real, and we have to come through. Several of you, the survival of your institutions might be relying on that. We've got to find a way to market our schools, hit our goals, using nothing but what we have. And too many times I talk with smaller to medium-sized schools, and they're like, boy, if I just had the budget of this state flagship, we wouldn't have any problems. Well, that's not necessarily true. It's how you're going to think about that. And so part of the way I look at that is looking at how can we best market focused on chasing the mission-fit students that are going to best succeed. And so the way I define a mission-fit student is one that embodies and enhances your institutional values. It's somebody that you look at and you can say, okay, we know that student, and you know them, you could probably think of some of those students in your school right now, the ones that, they applied, they enrolled, they showed up, they matriculated, they had a great time, they retained, they love your school, and then they become great alumni. I mean, that's your perfect mission-fit student. But if you can find more and more of those types of students that are going to really embody who you are, that's one of the key elements of that. And I really think that to be able to do that, you have to identify who you are as an institution that is unique so that you can focus on the students that are going to want what you have. And so I really think there are 5 keys to marketing your institution in that way. One is differentiation, and we're going to go into each one of these a little bit in detail, but being able to differentiate who you are and why that's important. You've got to understand what the watering holes are for those mission-fit students that you're chasing. You've got to understand the Goldilocks of efforts, and so we're going to talk and define what that means. Your focus and strategy has to be really honed down, and you've also got to be able to think differently and be courageous when you do that. So first, let's just talk about this idea of differentiation. So you have to know who you are, and you've got to be able to articulate that differentiation clearly. A lot of times I'll work with small schools, and they're like, well, we're small, and we've got great teacher-faculty ratio, and everybody feels like they're family here. Everybody says that. And so you've got to really go deeper. How are you truly different? And how can you articulate that so that you attract those people that want what you have? Sometimes when you're a smaller school, Even if you're a larger school, you can tell everybody about it. Brand awareness is certainly one tactic that you can do. But if you think about all the people who need education and the people who need your education, whether it be a community college or whether it be a faith-based institution, whether it be a focused on technology or whatever it is, the pie keeps shrinking down. And so the amount of people who need to understand who you are becomes very narrow. And at the point where you need to really be able to understand who that narrow niche is that you're going after so that you can define who you are so that their ears perk up and they're like, okay, I kind of understand who you are. So differentiation is one of the really key elements, is being able to truly articulate that in your marketing. The second thing is the idea of watering hole. So I define a watering hole as it's a target-rich engagement environment. So if you think about like going on a safari, you're not going to just wander the woods aimlessly. You're going to probably go and find out where the watering holes, because all of the animals are eventually going to go to that place because they need water. And if you stand by the watering hole, you'll have a much better chance of seeing wildlife. It's the same goes true for those students that we're trying to find. We need to figure out who is that perfect student that's going to fit for us. Where do they go for entertainment? Where do they go for their information? Where do they go to learn about your school? Where do they go to ask questions? Once you understand those watering holes, you can go then to where they're already gathering. And that might be social media. It might be certain YouTube videos or channels. It could be a lot of digital things, but it could also be physical locations. So it might be after-school clubs. It might be things like internships or things that they do at school and high school. It could be churches if it's a faith-based institution. There's a lot of ways, and so being able to identify what are those watering holes, where are those, and that's why doing persona development and other techniques within marketing is so important, to be able to identify who are these people and what are their traits that we can kind of figure out. The third one I call kind of the Goldilocks effect. Your marketing has to fit your institution and goals. If I had a nickel for every time somebody told me, hey Bart, our board told me we need more billboards, what can we do? I would not have to be working anymore. I would retire. But the fact is that you don't need more billboards. You need marketing that's going to fit your budget, your institution, and who you are to attract those mission fit students that you've identified because you've differentiated yourself. And so being able to really make sure that everything that you're doing in your marketing has a set of goals, and the way that you do it is matching who you are. Sometimes I really literally want to cry when I talk to a really tiny school, again, some of those micro colleges, and I'm like, tell me what this $1 million budget line item here is with the cable company. What's that about? Are you doing cable ads? Oh, no, they do our pay-per-click ads. It's great. We get like 250 conversions a month. Like, do you know what conversions mean? Yeah, it's students, right? No, it's not. And so we talk about that, but that becomes a little bit of digital literacy. It becomes the ability to understand those things and being able to understand what you can do, understand what your marketing availability is and what those tools are, so that you can really fit those well to your institution and do well on that. The next thing, number 4 on that list that I said, is your marketing effort and your team driven, or are they the drivers? So that idea of focus and strategy. And that quote comes from one of my podcast guests, Ethan Braden, who's now the CMO at Texas A&M. We talked a lot about the idea of marketing teams often get driven. So it's like, hey, make it look prettier by Monday. Is that what your team is doing, or is your team really the drivers that are saying, we know what's best because we're marketing experts, we're creative experts. We're going to tell you how to achieve the goals, enrollment, advancement, whoever else we're trying to achieve goals. And so I often like to look at marketing teams and say, okay, what is the majority of the work that you're doing, and is it revenue enhancing? Is it going to get you more students? Is it going to get you more donations? Is it going to move a brick for the institution moving forward? A lot of times I find too many teams that are just spinning their wheels because, Professor Jones wants her PowerPoint to look better next week, or somebody needs a pop-up display for an event they're going to do at the Chamber of Commerce. We have to really think through how we're utilizing the marketing team, and are they just being driven by the whims of the institution, or are they actually being strategic drivers of the health of the institution through the marketing and creative work that they provide. And then this number 5 is the idea of thinking differently. So is your marketing effort truly creative, or is it just a me too? Too many times I think we get intimidated, especially if you might be a smaller or medium-sized school. You get intimidated because you're like, well, I don't know if I can do that. It's just safer to just do what everybody else is doing because, you know, no one's going to yell at me because I saw the state school doing it, so what's the problem? The problem is that it's not really going to move the needle for your institution. And so I talk in the book a lot about the idea of thinking differently and trying to really focus your efforts to do those things that are going to be affecting your enrollment, that are going to be affecting and moving the bricks that you need to move. And so, again, you can be very creative with AI, and you've seen a lot of examples of that this week, and you're going to hear more in the next few sessions. And I really am leaning more into utilizing generative AI because I can be more creative. I can do a lot more things. I was on a call earlier today with someone, and I likened it to, you know, Tony Stark can throw a pretty good punch in Iron Man. But as soon as he gets into the Iron Man suit, it's exponential because he's leveraging the technology, the tool that he has to do what he already can do, but he can do it a lot better. So it's almost like if you've got a marketing team of 1 or 2 or 3 people, bringing generative AI and using that, all of a sudden you've got the power of 30 people. And so don't lose sight of the fact that these tools can actually help you achieve your goals in a lot of different ways. So as we talk that through, the idea of how are we going to move the needle? So those are the 5 things again. We need to identify our differentiation. What makes you unique and how are you going to articulate that really well? We're going to find the watering holes where our prospective students are really going to flourish and where we can engage with them and have conversations and market to them. We're going to only do the things that are going to fit for our type of institution. So really look at that perfect fit, that Goldilocks of this is just right. What's going to be just right for your institution to do from a marketing standpoint? And then make sure you're focused and your strategy is focused on your team is doing the things that they need to do to move the bricks. What is that going to do for revenue enhancement? And then also just the idea of really thinking differently, being creative in ways that are going to really help your institution and do things better. So before I take a few questions, I'm just going to pull this up. Next steps, books up there. There's also a study guide that we just released about a week ago. I know a lot of people are starting to talk about, hey, let's do a summer book club with our team and we'll all read it together. We identified that, and just a quick secret for all of my friends in this room, we used ChatGPT to help with the study guide. We uploaded the book. We told it we wanted to have 5 individual questions, 5 group questions, and give us a group exercise for each chapter. We got about 60 to 70% there, and then we had our team edit it and change it and modify it. And so I'm really proud of the effort. We actually published that entire book in about 5 weeks, from the idea that I had of maybe I ought to use ChatGPT to having it on Amazon. So that's available. Also, we're doing audits and professional help if you need that from Caylor Solutions, and also doing a lot of AI training for schools. If that's something you're interested in, come and talk to me. And then I'm also providing, for this conference only, the first 5 people who want to scan that and fill out their contact information, we'll sit down for 30 minutes and just talk about how you can better do your marketing at your school and just give you some ideas and come up with some different ways of doing that. So I'm going to open it up for any questions. I know I'm going to be up here on stage with a few other folks here in a moment, but anything specific about chasing mission fit or the idea of doing your marketing a little bit differently? One in the back.
Stand up and shout.
Okay, so the question is, what was the strategy to figure out where your most relevant watering hole for your prospective students might be? 2 things that you can do. 1, ask the students that are already sitting in your classes. I think being able to ask them and say, look, I'm trying to figure out where can we find more of you? And give them examples to say, where digitally would that be? Where physically would that be? Where could we do that? And that, I think, would be a good exercise, because one of the things that I find is that a lot of people know, oh, we need to do some market research, but we just don't have it in the budget, or that's already been done this year. You can do market research every day by walking into the the cafeteria and sitting down and talking to students. So don't forget the fact that that's probably one of your most valuable assets that you can do. The second thing I would do is do the persona development and really think through and identify by name the different personas that are your mission fit students. And then start asking the questions among the team to say, okay, we've got a persona here named Sally. Where are the things that Sally does? What does she do? She's high academics. So people who are high academics, what do they do? Do they go and look at YouTube videos? Are they looking at Instagram? What kind of YouTube videos are they watching? Are they asking questions about scholarships? Just trying to kind of chase down that rabbit trail of what those students are doing to start identifying those watering holes. That's a great question. Thanks, Jonathan.